John, thanks for your time. Another big effort from the players on Saturday despite the result. How are they doing having come back in today?
Yeah, not too much time to dwell on it. Short turnaround, so we're at Monday already, playing on Thursday. So it's a quick deal with the game, and then, it's all about getting ready for Wakefield now.
You mentioned on Saturday bringing Brad Fash off due to being exhausted. How is he from what you've seen of him?
No, he's all right. He's been injured and then he hasn't had a lot of game time since he's been back, and had to play a little bit extra game time on the weekend. But he did his job really well, and he stayed out there till he basically was exhausted. Yeah.
Jed Cartwright looked pretty knackered as well after his final stint at the weekend. How's he responded to his first game since March?
No, you're 4 months out of the game. It's going to take a few games to get yourself back to condition. So, main thing for Jed was that I thought he made a difference when he went out there, and he came through healthy.
I was going to ask, how much of a difference did it make having a natural second rower back in there in the forward kit?
We weren't going to see it, straight away. It's like I said, it was get back out in the field, get a feel for the game. Fingers crossed that he stayed healthy, and he did. Each week will get better.
How do you think the different combinations that you went with on Saturday? How do you think they fared?
Well, like any combination, it's going to take time, but it was more out of necessity than anything else. Get it right at training, but it's totally different in the heat of a game and the speed of a game. So it's again, it'll if we go that way again next week, it'll be better.
Have you got any kind of scope or flexibility to make changes, given the effort that the players are having to put in due to the errors and set completion at the moment?
No, not really. You'd be throwing some young kids in there that probably not ready for it. We're in this position, and we've had a sort of core group of 20 guys been playing the last 6 weeks. We're in that position, and they'll get us out of this position.
You praised Zach Hardacre at the weekend for how he went at fullback. Just how pleased have you been with sort of how he's led through his performances this season?
Yeah, he's played and trained the same from his first day in November up until now. He's just a total professional. And wherever you put him, you just know he's going to give 100% and never give up. And he did that again on the weekend.
Where's Logan Moy in the fullback picture at the moment?
Yeah, we got a game at Doncaster on the weekend. Haven't had a chance to watch that game yet, but I'll watch that between now and when we come up with a side.
You mentioned that on Saturday that a few players who perhaps haven't been through this, their confidence will have been knocked by recent games and performances. How have you been trying to pick them up as a head coach?
Just focus on the positives. Be honest. There's no ducking and diving. Be honest with your appraisal. Focus on the positives, and attacking the challenge this week. It's a lot of people around you can be all doom and gloom when you're not getting results. But for us as a group, players and coaches, our mindset's got to be we've got to look forward to it. You've got to attack these situations.
Are you an arms around the shoulder kind of head coach? What's your style when you go through these periods?
Yeah, it's all dependent on the performance. I think if we can control what we can control, and you don't get the result, well, that's every situation and every position you find yourself in is a little bit different. It's everyone at the end of the day, everyone likes a pat on the back. And no one goes out there to play badly, so it's just it's like I say, we've got to enjoy the challenge. You've got to enjoy the good times, the bad times, if you cop a punch in the nose or you get a pat on the back.
You talked to Richard Stead on Saturday about the fact that you've probably not played your best rugby over the past month. Injuries and errors aside, what else do you think has been at the heart of that?
No, I think that's it. You'd be searching for answers if you're looking anywhere else. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, I think. How
important is it that you get back to your fundamentals to re-find a bit of rhythm?
Yeah, we need to. At the core of the game is catching the ball, playing the ball and kicking the ball, make your tackles. Sometimes you look for answers that aren't there. If you stick to those principles, you won't go too far away, and as long as you meet them.
Tight turnaround, but how much could that help the group, perhaps not to dwell on the most recent defeat?
Yeah, we've had a few shorter turnarounds in the past, and we've handled them reasonably well. Yeah, no time to think about it, and no time to feel sorry for ourselves. You know, the whole between now and I think we've got 10 games to go. We'll attack every game, challenge ourselves, and you know, we'll put ourselves in a position that you know, we've got an opportunity to play semi-final football, which I think at the start of the year probably not many people thought we would.
Ahead of the final 10 games, John, and sort of aside from the top 6 situation, how do you see the season overall so far, having come in?
Oh, look, it's a hard one to judge because we're going to be judged on what happens to, you know, after the last game. But you know, we're probably a pass mark at the moment. You know, I think we're sitting at 50-50 win-loss. I know in the NRL, if you end up at that, you generally play semi-finals at the end of the year. Look, happy with certain areas and not happy in other areas. So probably every coach in the Super League would say that, I think, at this stage. How
much perhaps is your message, given the progress that you've made this year, to your players to not let that slip going into these final 10 games?
Yeah, we deal with each game as it comes. You know, you're trying to address where you need to improve and work on it that week and you know, get right for the following week. So our preparation in general has been very, very good. So, you know, there's not many games where we haven't been a chance of winning the game come at the 80th minute mark. So keep doing that often enough, you will win some games and turn that into confidence and hopefully more wins.
You face a Wakefield side that have just leapfrogged you into the top 6. How much should the players be relishing a game like this with so much on the line?
Yeah, like I said, we've got to enjoy the position we're in. You know, you don't, if you're scared of it or you run away from it, you're not going to be in the contest. So, you know, we've got between now and Thursday to really embrace and enjoy this challenge in front of us. You know, everyone who plays the game loves playing in big games, big occasions, and this is one of those. You know, it's another step along the way. What have you made of Wakefield since you won at their place back in March? No, they're a really good side. They throw the ball around. They really test you defensively. They've got plenty of resolve. They've beaten some good sides, and like us, you know, I think they're in the game most games right till the final whistle. So they're, you know, always dangerous opposition sides like that. And players in their three-quarter line and the halves really hitting their straps at the moment, particularly Corey Hall, who's been impressive recently. How do you keep their danger men quiet? Yeah, like anyone, just time and space. You know, like put the ball where we would like to put it, which is, you know, hasn't been a strength of ours, especially the last 3 weeks. So, yeah, nothing will change. You know, we've just got to be better at what we do, limit their classy players as best we can. A couple of players coming back to the MKM for the first time as well. How much has that formed part of players brought that up at all that they'll be keen to prove upon? No, we really haven't addressed anything about the game this week. It was more, you know, short turnaround, deal with the game from the weekend, and you know, just send them off, and you know, they'll be back in pretty much on captain's run, and we'll, you know, the week is pretty much centred around just refreshing the body and mentally being ready for the challenge. Won't finally dwell on the home form, John, but the fans stuck around at the end to applaud the efforts of your players despite the defeat. What would you like to say to them, and perhaps thank them for how they applauded you off at the end? Yeah, you know, I think like everyone, you know, they like to see their side trying. You know, the players and the staff, and you know, everyone hurts like the fans when we don't get a result. You know, there's nothing better than you know, seeing the stadium rocking after. Well, we haven't had a home win, but after a win away from home, to see the fans just enjoying themselves and putting smiles on their faces, and there's no one in the club that doesn't want to see that. So there's no lack of effort, and there's no lack of, you know, everything being thrown at getting that elusive home win. And you know, I feel it's close. John, thanks for your time. Cheers, mate.
Hi, John. John, last couple of games, I think they've slipped away from us, mainly because we haven't put ourselves in a good position. I think I know our completion rates was 75% against Warrington and 66% at Saints at the weekend. Is that because the players are trying too hard, or is that some other problem? And how would you get the players to just look after the ball a bit more? Yeah,
we're not. You know, we're not playing any different to what we were when we were sort of averaging around the 80%, you know, so it's sometimes you think too much about it. We've made mention of some error counts when they haven't we haven't been where we want to be. So this week it's not going to buy into that. We've got the main focus for us this week is physically rest up and get right, and mentally just be ready for the challenge. Come Thursday night. It's you don't want errors, but sometimes it's a fact of talking about them too much and you're highlighting them.
Okay. And we've just heard from Harvey speaking very well about things that are happening for him personally. One of the things he brought up was his ability to learn. So fundamentally, I think it's a great trait to have. Where do you stand, and what can you do as a coach to ensure that somebody is, wanting to get involved and learn from others? Because players can be difficult. Yeah,
it's just being consistent with your approach. You can't. What you believe was going to work at the start of the year, it can't change too much. What you base all your training on, all your pre-season on, it's just whatever happens on the weekend, just staying consistent with those beliefs. It's all centred around hard work, doing your extras, preparing as best you possibly can, and they're the messages that we'll get across between now and the end of the year.
And you've mentioned about the controllables, doing what we can and keeping it in our power. Some of the things that I think frustrates the fans and certainly frustrated Harvey at the weekend was 6 agains. It just seems as though we seem to be getting penalised a lot more than other teams over the season, and we are at a massive against at the moment. Is that frustrating from a coach's point of view? Because at the moment it doesn't look as though we know where we stand.
No, it is one, and I suppose it's a weekly thing, understanding why those are given and why they're not given. You could go through a lot of different tackles, and yes, at the end of the day, you just keep scratching your head because it's not. It's just hard to work out why they're given, or probably more so why they're not given in the same situation. So I can understand the fans' frustration with it because it's frustrating for players and coaches as well.
Okay, thanks, John.
Cheers, mate.
All right, John. Quota situation within Super League at the minute. There's supposed to be a meeting later this month to finalise the terms of it and what will happen. Have you as a club had any correspondence on that so far?
I haven't, mate, no. So, like I said, at the moment, it is what it is for this year.
It must be frustrating that there's a so-called meeting yet the clubs aren't even being told about it. I mean,
yeah, well, it's very frustrating. There's not many sort of businesses or competitions in the world where where are we? We're at July, and next season's not that all far away when you think about it, when you start training. So it's to not be really clear of what you can and can't do is it's extremely frustrating.
And when this meeting does happen, when it'll be clubs sat around a table, I mean, how is that proactive in your opinion? Because surely, in the NRL, the Australian Rugby League Commission tell you what you're doing and you get on with it. So why isn't it the same in this country? The RFL telling you what you got to do and sort of like
probably asking the wrong bloke, mate. I don't know what the process is in making this decision. Look, I think everyone is of the thought that there will be some sort of extension to the rule, but until you're actually given that, that in writing, it's hard to act upon.
Appreciate the pride there, John. Reserve's got a good win. I think it's 5 in a row now. Some young players in that team that got over the line against St Helens, so it's good for their development, I guess.
Yeah, all the young lads, a couple of academy boys, or a few of the academy boys playing as well. So it's just great to see them playing against older and more experienced opposition and more than holding their own. It's another one I harp on a bit. It's just a shame they can't be able to do it every week.
Yeah, obviously it's all about development for them, innit? But they seem to be ticking the boxes when they do get those opportunities, which I guess is testament to their character, because it must be frustrating, like you say, when you're waiting so long to play, but when you do play, you're still producing the goods.
Yeah, they all of the boys that played the other night, they're just a pleasure to have in the squad. Whatever we ask them to do training-wise, they've got to often train out of position. They give it their all. They never complain, and they turn up and play enthusiastically every week. And it's good to see.
Ryan Westerman played in that game. Obviously, he's had a tough year on with his ankle injury. He's been on loan, but was it good to see him back in black and white again?
Yeah. Again, he just needs to be able to play every week. You know, he missed out at Hunslet on the weekend, but he come here and got his 80 minutes out, and hopefully, you know, we can get him another 80 minutes at Hunslet this week.
Jack Rampton didn't play, but he was at the first team game on Saturday. What was he? Was he any?
He just got a little groin strain, which just wasn't at the stage of the year where we thought it was worth a risk. He should be right for the next game.
In terms of injuries, Will Price has got his scan this week. I'm guessing that's still to come because we're only Monday, aren't we?
Yeah, he'll get a scan next Monday.
All right. Good stuff. In terms of Wakefield, I just appreciate it's a short turnaround. You've answered a lot of questions about this already, but I suppose the effort's there, the grit's there, the determination's there. You've got a basis to go on, get what you're desiring for. You must be very confident you can get some victories.
Yeah, I am. If we, sometimes if you're not, it's hard to keep that effort up if you're not giving yourself chance, with the ball. So that's a big one, big balance we've got to find. We've got to make sure we keep turning up with that same determination to defend our try line. But again, I'm sort of broken record again. But making sure that we get to the end of our sets as often as we can and give them the ball down their own end.
Belief. Obviously, you speak to the players every day. The belief must be there that if they do that with what they're producing in terms of effort fundamentals, they're going to get results, sooner rather than later. Yeah,
it is. It's just, it's only been the last sort of probably 3 out of the last 4 games where we've just been really poor in that area. So, we won't be talking about it at all this week. It'll be, we'll just keep everything as positive as we possibly can. Like I said, early in the year, we weren't having these problems.
Top man. Cheers, John.